FPL Game Week 34 free hit draft edition. In today's video, we'll be going through the Vert verified power ranking, my top 5 for the next 5, across all the best picks for blank Game Week 34, and a very template free hit draft, which will not be my final team selection. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe, and let's get into it. What's up? It's FPL Vert, where arrows go green, and after 3 greens in a row, we're currently on your red because bench boost game week 33 has not gotten off to the best start, let's be honest. But that's okay because it's a double game week and we've got 2 bites of the cherry. So let's update after De Bruyne gets a haul and Marmoush also gets a hat-trick later. So yeah, we'll discuss that later in my team selection video. But looking forward, it is blank game week 34 because Arsenal, Aston Villa, Crystal Palace and Manchester City do not have a game in the Premier League this week. So you're probably opening your teams up and realizing that your players have all got blanks. That's totally fine because we're all going to have to activate our free hit chip or maybe wildcard. And if you haven't planned for this, well, we have to take a few hits. But we have the verified power ranking for my favorite picks anyway at the moment. So let's go into that. So starting with the goalkeepers, and it's Jose Salah, who's currently actually on a yellow flag because he got injured in the warm-up in the win against Manchester United on Sunday. But if he passed fit, I do think he's the best pick just because Leicester just do not know how to score at the moment. In the last 6 game weeks, they've only scored 2 goals and they've also had the least amount of XG in the league. So I think if you're going to target the worst attack in the league, it's going to be with the Wolves defence for sure. Then there's also Leno, of course. Fulham haven't kept that many clean sheets this season. In fact, only the promoted sides have kept less clean sheets than Fulham. But it is Southampton. And obviously, Southampton are relegated already, but they've scored in like 5 of their last 6 games. So it's not actually the best pick. So I would prefer Jose Salah. Alisson, of course, he's facing Tottenham. As bad as Tottenham have been, they still score goals. They've actually scored as many goals as Arsenal have this season now. So probably not the best, but in terms of actual player, it's probably Alisson. Pope is there, but I think when Newcastle are facing Ipswich, you're going to want a triple up, probably in attack, maybe defense if you want to have a bit of insurance, just in case. Of course there are 3 spots, and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so I do think Jose Salah is actually the best goalkeeper, but as he's a yellow flag, it's probably Leno at the moment. And then Kepa is also there just because United might be rotating, but they still should be able to score, and Bournemouth haven't been the best either. Into the defenders, and as mentioned, Leicester just do not know how to score at the moment. They've only scored 2 goals in their last 6 game weeks, as just mentioned, and I think Aït-Nouri, a defender who is pretty much attacking, is pretty much a no-brainer. I think you'll find him in virtually every single free hit draft this week, personally, and if they don't, well, fair enough. But yeah, he's had to be the number 1 pick in defence. Then it gets interesting because, of course, Newcastle are playing Ipswich, so you might want to, maybe go Barnes and Murphy and Isak, but well, I mean, we'll discuss in the midfielders, but Gordon won't just sit on the bench forever, right? So it might be best to just go for someone like Cher, who obviously he scored in back-to-back games now. He could score 3 games in a row, and obviously he's always had a penchant for scoring anyway. And probably just split the risk. And then Kirkers is here because obviously he took bonus with a 0-0 draw, and United have not been the best either. So probably my top 3 are these top 3. Trent obviously probably would start in normal circumstances, but he hasn't been starting recently. Obviously he's just back from injury now. Can we get a guarantee that he starts? I'm not too sure. And obviously he's supposedly leaving, well, not supposedly leaving, he is going to be leaving at the end of this season. So I'm not too sure why he would continue to start games if they need to start playing for the future, as Jamie Carragher said. But he's still an option to have. And then Cucurella, obviously, because he just keeps attacking so well in the Chelsea team. In fact, he's usually in the penalty box. So kind of tough to decide who to actually start in defence, but these are my top 5 at the moment. Into the midfielders, and yes, it is being very template. I did give a warning at the start of the video, but it is pretty much impossible to ignore 18-point hauls, especially when it's Bryan Mbeumo, who becomes the 2nd player behind Mohamed Salah to cross 200 points in FPL, and he also scored his 18th league goal of the season. So yes, Forest away is not the best fixture, and yes, you know, there are other maybe exciting picks to go for, but you know Brandon Boomer is going to start. You know he's going to be at 90 minutes. You know he's going to get penalties, and it's also the last game of the game week. So you know, from that perspective, you know, it is a bit exciting to have someone to count on in the last game, especially if the week is going well or not well. You know, I think it's just a bit more fun. And also, Forest play 3 times before. Well, they're playing 3 times between yesterday, Monday 21st of April, and next Thursday, whereas Brentford played on Saturday, the 19th of April, and have almost 2 weeks to prepare for this game. So I think it has to be a Brandon Boomer for this one. Now, as I mentioned briefly with Newcastle, I think it's very tempting to triple up attack, but Harvey Barnes is in incredible form. I think he's returned in like the last 6. Well, I think the last 6 game weeks in a row actually, and you know Murphy's been coming off around around the hour mark for Gordon, and Barnes goes to the right wing. So I think if we want, you know, the most assured minutes, it probably is Barnes. So for that reason, I wouldn't actually go for Murphy. And of course, Isak will be there no matter what. So it's between, you know, tripling up on the attack or getting a defender or the goalkeeper. So I'd have Barnes up here, and then the rest is pretty much. They haven't really been in the best form in Salah, Palmer, and Kluivert, but I think it's more a fixture play and also effective ownership play, because you know that everyone will have Salah, you know everyone will have Palmer. Well, most people will have Palmer. I think most people are going to go against him. I personally don't want to, because I might be a little bit biased, but I still think he's incredible talent, and that that Neto winner at Fulham should spark their season, because you know if they didn't win that, you know their top 5 chart would basically be over. But I do think, you know, home against Everton, it'll probably be a sticky game, maybe a penalty. You know, Palmer will be on penalties, so I have to go for Palmer here. And Kluivert here is more of a Europa League play. I call it a Europa League play because United and Tottenham, their season in the Premier League is basically over. They can't get into Europe at all. Their season rests on the Europa League, so I think they're going to be prioritising that and managing minutes and managing first teamers. So I don't think they're going to be putting out their best teams. So I think that's perfect for Kluivert, who's on penalties and he's home to Manchester United. So I think an easy pick there. Into the forwards, and you'll see in the free hit draft I've actually only got 2 forwards in the starting 11, because the rest of them don't really move me, if I'm honest. I think CUNHA picks himself because he's a bonus monster, and he should be starting now. Now that he's back from injury, obviously he started against Manchester United for the trip to Old Trafford. I understand that Pellegrini was injured, but I'm not really looking into that. I think, you know, I don't see why Vitor Pereira wouldn't start his best player, if I'm honest. Especially against Leicester, they can rack up some goals, get some, you know, good morale in the sunshine. Yeah, so I would go for CUNHA. Then Isak obviously picks himself as well. Probably a captain candidate as well against Ipswich. So that's to be discussed as well. But the rest of them, I mean, like before Wood scored yesterday, I wasn't even looking at him at all. I'm putting him in here just because he scored and he got bonus. And Brentford, I guess, is a good fixture. But you know, after the deadline on Saturday, Nottingham Forest play on the FA Cup semi-final. So you know, anything can happen. And like I think, you know, you don't know how that's going to go. You don't know how they will react to winning or losing in the FA Cup semi-final, so I wouldn't really be picking Wood. Evan Nilsson's here because, as I mentioned with the Europa League play, you know, United and Tottenham are going to be prioritising elsewhere outside the Premier League. And Woods is here just because he always returns as well. So these are the forwards. So into the free hit draft for blank game week 34. As I mentioned, this is very template, so this will not be my final team, but I think it is good to look at what the most template picks are, just so we can get an idea of what the rest of the field will be choosing. And as I mentioned, I don't actually like Leno that much. Kind of expensive, even though that doesn't matter here, but Fulham don't keep clean sheets. Like, as I mentioned, only the promoted sides have less clean sheets than Fulham, so really you're paying for nothing. You're paying for nothing here. So I would be going for Wolves if he's past fit. And then Kirkhead, Aït-Nouri, share, I think pretty much pick themselves. Kirkhead should be able to get some joy down United's right hand side. Aït-Nouri is probably the most template pick of the week, if I'm honest. And then share is just because I don't want to triple up with Newcastle attack, because we don't know if Gordon's going to play or Gordon's going to start, or you know how it's going to go. And I don't think you can really drop Barnes in this moment either. And as I mentioned, Barnes seems to stay on when Gordon comes on. We've got Salah captain at the moment because, as I mentioned, this is a template draft, and I think he would be the most template default captain. And then the rest of the picks pretty much pick themselves. I guess you could really only debate Palmer because he hasn't been good, but as I mentioned, I can't look away from him because I think Everton at home, you know, it's probably going to be a set piece or penalty that will separate the game. So he's worth backing, in my opinion. Then CUNHA and Isak are pretty much easy picks as well. And then the bench is just a bit of fun. Obviously, Trent on the bench is quite funny, but as I mentioned, I can't be too sure if he's going to start or not. So that's why he's there. And Cucurella as well. I would prefer to start Cucurella if I could, but I'm not too sure who I could drop. So this is the first draft of the week. Obviously, we'll have my team selection later this week, and we'll update my thoughts on that as well. So if you have any questions, please drop it into the comments, and you can DM me on Instagram or Twitter. And yeah, thank you for watching. Speak soon.